Hi there, and welcome to this, our sixth free webinar in the 2019 Smart Building Series. I'm very happy to have you along today. And today we are talking about navigating the complex smart building landscape. We'll be talking about a white paper that we have collaborated with Locatee on, and it's a comprehensive use case guide for real estate professionals. So that's kind of our theme today. And I am joined by Thomas Kessler, CEO of Locatee. So hi, Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Great to hear you. Hello from sunny Zurich, Switzerland.
Good. Nice to hear that you've got some good weather over there. I'm going to ask you just to introduce yourself in a little bit, but first of all, just cover some housekeeping for everyone listening. First thing, this is an interactive kind of session. We're going to be discussing some of the content that we produced and some of the slides, and obviously we hope you find that very interesting. And if you do have questions, feel free to type them in. It should be in your console, some way of doing that, and I'll get that here, and we'll be able to take those questions as we go along. Other than that, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So we've been doing these webinars now for a few years, and so there's plenty of content online for you guys to look at, all smart building related. I hope all interesting. So you can go to SoundCloud. You can search for Memoori Research. You'll find us even on iTunes. It's published as a podcast. Find us there. And also on YouTube. Again, just search for Memoori Research and you'll find us. And if you would like to, please leave us a nice review on iTunes. It all helps. So let's get going. And first of all, let me again introduce you to Thomas. Thomas, tell us a little bit about yourself and the company and when you were founded and what you've been doing.
Perfect. Thank you very much for this short introduction, James. So yes, hello everyone. I'm Thomas Kessler, founder and CEO at Locatee. Actually, approximately 4 years ago, I started Locatee because I saw actually how difficult it is for corporate real estate teams understanding what's going on in their office buildings. And me and my co-founder, actually, we started to think about, okay, in a digitized world, how can you actually still do like manually count the number of people in buildings? There should be better ways. And so we started and has been pretty successful in doing that over the course of the last few years. We are working with some of the largest companies across the world to enable them make better and faster real estate decisions, and on the other hand, create a better work environment. So pretty exciting topic, and this is why we have partnered up with Memoori, and pretty excited to give you today an update and also like a webinar on this topic, how to not get lost in a smart building.
Exactly. So let's kind of like just, I guess, start by framing the challenge. One thing, anyone listening out there, you can go and download this white paper now. Probably a good idea because I think it's a good companion as we go through the webinar. You can see, obviously the content in more detail. So on your screens, you should see the link, but it's basically crem.locatee, that's with two E's, locatee.ch/use-case-navigator. And if you go there, just enter in your details and you can get the white paper, and hopefully you'll find that interesting as we go along. But basically, this came out of a conversation that we had, and we felt, and I think Thomas and all the team at Locatee share as well, the fact that, we've got an increasingly complicated landscape of smart building solutions. There's a lot more vendors coming to market with different things, different types of technology that, serve different purposes, perhaps even, produce different data and do so in, a way, just slightly different ways. And that maybe gives a perception of complexity when actually in reality, what we need to use the technology for is quite simple. And that's really what this white paper was about, to try and bring some clarity to what the different uses are for technology in commercial office space. And so that perhaps, CRE professionals and facilities teams can think about prioritizing those different use cases or different priorities that they have, so that they can at least move by step towards smartening a building. I mean, Thomas, in your experience, do you often come across clients, other people, other vendors, people you talk to in the industry who are sort of finding it difficult to separate the technology from the use?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, when we talk to the prospects, we talk to partner, and we have done that for the last years. Many discussions we were in, and we had really the chance to discuss this quite deeply. And we had, in summary, we had a lot of these situations where people were discussing about like digital twin, IoT, building information modeling, and all these kind of buzzwords. Everyone actually started to talk about these buzzwords. Always, all discussions started with, yeah, we want to do IoT. And then we started to ask, actually, because we realized this is the wrong approach, we started to ask, yeah, what do you actually want to achieve? What is the actual business case and the outcome? And so I think this is very important to shift the focus, especially as the market is evolving, and to accelerate this shift from a focus on technology, from these buzzwords I call, to a more outcome-oriented idea, and to also the smart building strategy. So some of you might be in the course of developing a smart building strategy for your own company. So it's very important to really focus on what do you actually want to achieve at the end of the day? What is the real outcome? And not just, okay, we need to install some IoT stuff and we have a digital twin and so on. And in the end, we realize after we've done the project, there is no real outcome, and the business case cannot be proven as expected. So it's really important to focus on the outcome and to really understand and jointly develop within the team this vision on what do we actually want to achieve. And so this was kind of the challenge we came up with, and we saw quite often. And so we turned to Memoori and pitched them the idea, and yeah, here we are. And hopefully the white paper helps kind of to orientate in the smart building when you are in the course of creating a strategy.
Mm. So is that sometimes the case then, where you will go to a client or a partner or somebody who you're starting to work with, and that's often perhaps the first step, right? Is then just to kind of understand what the problem is, rather than what technology you can use to unlock that or solve that problem. So that often like the first conversation is more about what do you want to achieve, what does a good outcome look like?
Exactly. So I mean, I can give you some examples which makes it a little bit more specific. We quite often go into a discussion, and companies they approach us. They tell us they want to measure every desk across their entire portfolio, how it is used. And then we go into discussions, and we're happy to like learn about their challenges. And usually when we ask them, hey, but across, I don't know, 5 or 50,000 desks, why do you actually want to have this information? Can you actually handle it? And many times, actually, the customers realize that actually we don't really know what we at the end will do. From like top down, there was an initiative we should have some IoT initiatives going on, but in the end, just having this information of like down to desk utilization, this is not really a problem. So we start always go back a step and tell them, hey, let's quickly go a step back and discuss what is actually the challenge you have currently in your organization. How can actually corporate real estate prove value, and how can we actually, with different technologies, only in a second step, address these challenges once agreed and once shared within the entire organization.
Mm-hmm. So, and as part of this process of doing the white paper, we came up with these 7 attributes, which I hope you can see on your screen. Control, conserve, secure, bind, communicate, optimize, and personalize. So essentially these sort of, for want of a better word, these 7 groups under which we think, these uses can be put under. So maybe we can just take some of these, Thomas. I mean, in terms of what you do as a company, how do you think that you're positioned within that?
Yes. So I mean, we have, as a company, we're like focusing mainly on this workplace analytics topic. In the end, our focus is mainly on this optimize and also in a second step in this find area. But we see really, once you really want to go into and create a smart building, it's not just about having one vendor having a siloed solution, but really connecting all the dots with different other solutions in the end to benefit across these 3 areas. So the space topic, space utilization is huge, especially with our solution. We see a lot of demand for space utilization challenges, so use cases reflecting and around deciding where to optimize the space. And then the other topic, which is secure control, we have of course some relations to it, but usually we connect the systems, we take the consume data from these systems. And the one thing probably also, if I look back to 4 years where we started really with that focus on this analytics topic, what picked up a lot, and probably, James, you can also reflect that it's more and more, it's around the user experience. So me as an employee, I come to the office and how do I actually perceive this building? I mean, the reason behind this is clear. It's like the digital natives enter the office buildings. And I heard just recently a quite nice saying where someone was saying, okay, the employees actually want to have 9 to 5 be like 5 to 9. Which is really like bringing in this consumer perspective, how you use a cab, so Uber, the Uberification of a building. This is a very important step, which picked up a lot in recent years, and where we see a lot of things going on, and where like based on technology, a lot of great outcomes can be achieved in the end.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll come on to that a little bit more, where we sort of dig into some of the use cases. So under these 7 attributes that you can see again, we came up with a list of 49 uses or of outcomes that people might want to achieve within commercial office space. And we'll go through that in a minute. That's quite a long list, but I doubt that it's exhaustive. And of course, I think one of the key takeaways that, I learned from this, I think, was that there is no one size fits all solution. So depending on, actually real estate in this sense is very much just dependent on what you want to achieve. And it's very difficult to have just a cookie cutter solution for each building. And I think that's what, we'll come on to that mapping. That was sort of one thing that I found interesting from this. I mean, is that something you thought you'd share, Thomas?
Absolutely. So, I mean, in the end, if you look at what buildings can contribute, and also like the chance or like the opportunity for corporate real estate teams are really like only expanding. And yeah, as you all know, corporate real estate is always kind of in this situation. Yeah, should it get outsourced, and what is the benefit for the overall organization? Especially also with the companies like WeWork coming up and so on. But actually what we really see, and what corporate real estate teams can really achieve, and how they can contribute to the performance of the overall organization, is way beyond what has been possible in the past. So like the dimensions they can contribute is, of course, like the typical thing of like cost reduction and like reduce the resources, like cleaning services, energy and everything. But where it gets more interesting is the thing where people itself, so that the experience, how people perceive the space, how they can navigate the space and so on. This is something where I think this is really a big opportunity for all corporate real estate professionals out there to actually show what's the value of having an internal corporate real estate team, bringing together HR, bringing together IT, bringing together the real estate functions. And I think this is really like a paradigm shift currently going on that enables corporate real estate team coming out from this cost perspective, going into more value-driven, outcome-driven contributor to the overall organization.
Right. Yeah. And we can see that here. So if we look at what we did was sort of group these different attributes. So obviously, when we talk about find, optimize, personalize, communicate, the focus of these attributes is on identifying sites and buildings with the greatest potential for satisfying employees' needs. So this, as Thomas was talking about, this move towards more human-centric, more user-centric buildings, and not just to improve the user experience, but also the environment. And then we grouped control and conserve together, and we think that these are sort of two attributes that are focused more on managing resources. So things like energy management, asset management, and benchmarking of sites or groups of buildings or regions with your other buildings to find out how they are operating. And finally, secure, which we felt kind of is slightly on its own. Of course, it's a fundamental thing within any building that it is secure, that assets and people within the building are secure at all times. But again, it is something that needs to be controlled and conserved, but that's sort of a basis. So we kind of talked a little bit about trends, Thomas. I guess it's worth fleshing that out a little bit, like what is really driving these attributes and use cases that we've identified. You talked a little bit there about the next generation of workers coming through, being digital natives. How have you seen that impact conversations that you've had with clients and partners?
A lot. I mean, I think we have seen that, as I mentioned earlier, in the beginning when we started with this, especially approaching the smart building topic from a space utilization perspective, it was always like a CFO-driven thing. We still see it in some companies, depending on the maturity, but like the next step is really this taking not only the space efficiency, which is still remains important, but also taking into consideration every employee. So really seeing how the employee perceives the work environment, how they can have, in the end, a building that supports them doing their job. So we see that shift, which has taken place and will further accelerate in the coming months and years. So I think this is a very, very profound shift from, as I mentioned, from a more cost-oriented perspective on buildings into a more value-oriented perspective. I think an important step that needs to be done, and this is it's a very important opportunity for corporate real estate teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things we put there, like flexible smart workplaces. What do people tell you about what flexible means? I mean, and how that relates to the portfolio, the office space, or the portfolio of real estate.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about, and it's of course it's caused by the increased adoption of mobile technology. Like today we can work from anywhere we want, and I think this is the shift in the mindset, so that from the millennials, the digital natives that come into the buildings, they don't like to just have this fixed office hours sitting at their specific desk. They are more into collaborative work styles, and so the real estate portfolio itself even the space, every square footage, every square meter has to account for these changes. And I think it's definitely these modern flexible workspace concepts, they have become mainstream just because it doesn't make sense to have half empty buildings on the one end, but of course also to, in the end, reduce space but increase the remaining quality of the space, and so be able to compete in the war for talent, so to really have a great office. I mean, I see it at our own company. We have been always working in a co-working space, and just recently we moved into our own office space. And I mean, this is like for us as a company, first of all, it was important, but on the other hand, it's like important step also for us, like that we live and breathe this. In the end, everyone can work from wherever they want, but the goal of the company, and this is the same for many of our customers, the goal of the company is actually to provide a work environment where people actually want to come to work and they don't have to. So it's really this flexibility where people just can roam around. And I think this is same applies for us as for our customers and for the entire market. So this is really the shift taking place right now.
Mm.
It is real.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And also so as you said, to provide this more flexible working practices, which are, you know, what basically the workforce is desiring now. But then also, I mean, how do you see that impact sort of client, not just retaining or not just allowing employees to do their best work, but also retaining and attracting staff? I mean, obviously that's critical to any company these days in this knowledge-based economy. But how do you see that fitting into, you know, the corporate real estate, the office environment?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, what defines like a workplace experience, basic things are having access to the space you need, like a meeting room when I need it, having access to a desk whenever I need it. So I don't want to come to the office and as it was like some companies in the past introduced desk sharing concepts and then ran out of desks, which was not good for the company, but also not good for the overall flexibility topic. So really having access to the right space, but also having access to the right assets. So I want to have the cafeteria available. I want to have, want to know where my people are, and all these kind of, this is like first step. Okay, I need to have visibility across my building. Where are people? Where are different places available? Is there a queue in the canteen? All these kind of things, which defines a great, like the basics of a good experience. In the end, what is a great experience, kind of the next level, is really that the building starts to support the people doing their jobs. So that basically the building, and this is only like starting now with where the building starts to talk to the people, in a sense that it suggests and helps them do their job, finding, for instance, the right people, or suggesting them even locations where they could work today based on their calendar, and all these kind of things, where we see the building play a more important role, the space itself, for the people to perform. These are kind of the next things, not just having visibility, but also the kind of the support of buildings. And of course, and this is also, we reflect that this is a kind of a third point, to personalize it more, so that depending on, so that you basically as an employee, you can control your environment. This starts from the lighting, where you can control what kind of how bright it should be, what color. It goes even to like control the heating and ventilation. So different technologies that are out there and which help to really bring the experience of a consumer good, like the experience, seamless experience of taking an Uber into the building, and really bringing it to the next level, so that you can be, as an employee, be more productive and happy and do your thing.
Interesting example I thought you brought out there, like where you mentioned queuing it for the canteen or maybe at lunchtime. I mean, that I guess for somebody, for anyone now, for like who's used to using apps like Uber or others, that you are, you know, that is a sort of much better user experience, right, than just going, let's say, walking to the canteen, not knowing whether you may have to queue for 10 minutes for food. Being, you know, really that could, you know, just being able to know that information about how long you may have to wait can really improve the user experience for an employee, and also mean that they're not wasting time during the day.
Absolutely. So there is still a lot of frictions in the buildings. I mean, how many times had it happened that you come to the meeting room and you start this conference call and it just doesn't work? So there are things like, from a user's perspective, it should be, yeah, I mean, very critical things. If it takes you 20 to 30 minutes to set up a conference call, this is just not a good solution. And I think there is a long way to go. We are definitely on the right track, but it requires a lot of more work on different ends. And it's, in the end, as I said, smart buildings, this is not just one single provider vendor. It's a whole bunch of different things coming together to really create this building, which in the end provides huge productivity and cost-effective scale for the entire organization.
Mm-hmm. And then what we did as part of this exercise, as I said, of these 7 attributes, was then look at the what uses or outcomes could be under those attributes, and I hope you can see this diagram. But basically, what we did was try to map some of these use cases. Now, and again, what we did is, if you can't see this particularly well on the screen, you'll be able to either go on our website, it's up there at the moment, or of course download the white paper, and I gave you the link for that earlier on. So yeah, do you want to let's have a quick chat about this, Thomas? I mean, from your point of view, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, what kind of the key message here is really, it all starts again with the focus. So where you as a corporate real estate team, what do you think is your starting point? What is the most pressing priority to tackle? In the end, the key message is really, there are different starting points on the one end, but there are different ways to get to this more human-centric office buildings. I think this is the clear point here. There is not a single way, but multiple ways, and you can start it from different perspectives. The important thing is just to start with the focus on the outcome, and then move along these axes. Hopefully, one after the other, tackle different use cases.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if we just move on one slide, you've got an example for us, right? So we're going to talk about something specific here around these 3 use cases.
Yeah, so I thought to myself, okay, what are like some examples I could share today as part of like what we have gained from our experience talking to customers, prospect partners, and other people. I mean, 3 examples I just came up with, and real examples we actually discuss with customers, and which kind of visualizes the importance of focusing on the outcome. And like one example I picked, probably you cannot see it too well, but just verbally explain it. So on the one hand, it's one use case, enable, so it's under the find area. So find is related to the people in the building, and the use case is find available meeting rooms. And the thing is, actually, we had a customer coming to us and like, giving us the insight that, hey, we have huge problems, or our meeting rooms are booked, our employees are complaining that we have not enough meeting rooms, and they basically anecdotally receive these complaints, kind of. And in the end, we exactly went through this deep dive where we challenged them on the challenges, because yeah, all my meeting rooms are booked. Let's install some presence detection sensors. That's probably not the best solution. First, we need to understand what's the problem. And we actually realized, by questioning and challenging them on the challenges, we realized that it wasn't the problem of the meeting rooms are all in the entire building fully booked. It's just not visible to everyone where available meeting rooms are. So the example was the person who complained on a floor. It was true that there were no bookable meeting rooms, but just one level below, actually, there were meeting rooms available. And so with a use case like this, where you can, like, in real time show which meeting room on a floor plan, for instance, you can actually solve these problems so that people know, hey, the building is bigger than just my level where I always am. And so I see on a floor plan, and it's not that far away. It's just taking the elevator or even taking the stairs downstairs to find the meeting room. And this kind of thing is like, it shows how important it is not just to, okay, we have a problem with meeting rooms, let's install sensors. It was less of a topic about what technology again, but rather how can we actually enable people to find the available meeting rooms at the right time. This is kind of one example which highlights, again, to challenge always what is actually the problem you want to solve. And then we have some other examples, things like, I took it from, what was it, Optimize. Again, there is also this driver. So it's the use case is like optimize the space so that basically supply meets the demand. Yeah, from the people in the end, from the employees. And there, another example we went through with customers. Actually, they had, typically the use case here is portfolio space planning, the consolidation part. So they had to decide if they can go out of a lease. So they had a break option. And in the end, we showed them, based on data, how they can enable and really take the data that they already have within their buildings, so without changing anything, based on, in this case, it was from the Wi-Fi connections. It can also be done from other systems, but decide then, based on the data, how the space can be planned and if a consolidation decision can actually be taken, and even communicated to the affected people in the building. So again, there is also there, not just focusing on IoT and, yeah, we want to install IoT across all our buildings, just looking at what do you already have in the building from an IT infrastructure point of view. So consuming data from the Wi-Fi positioning devices on a floor plan can already help take such decisions without even going into a huge deployment plan of sensors and all these kind of things. This was like the second example, which again, looking at what you already have and like starting from there, like answering the challenges. And the third part, this is more in the control area, where we had an example with a customer where they actually took information, space utilization information, so real-time space utilization information, in order to prepare the building for a heat wave or for hard winter days. So the moment you know how many people are in the building, you can also make the building react to it. And really, this combination, and this is kind of the third success factor combination of different solutions. So there it was a building management system provider who then combined with our data on people whereabouts in the building. Then this came together and in the end created this building, reactive building, which in the end adjusted its temperature, ventilation according to the people inside. So it's really about, I think it's in some why I picked these three use cases is really one is the first one was really to show you understanding, starting with the use case first, so the challenge first. The second one about the consolidation was really looking at the existing data you already have in the buildings, not just investing into technology for the sake of it. And the third one, a critical success factor for smart building strategy, is really having this open system and really systems that can talk to each other, so that it's not just a siloed solution and you don't exchange any information between a BMS system and the workspace analytics solution. So these are the key why I picked these three success or like these three success cases in our case, these three successfully implemented use cases.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that last example was very interesting about, because of course occupancy data is extremely useful for not just for, so data that your system produces is useful for a lot of different building systems, knowing where, who's in the building, where they are, etc. Like you were saying, can be used for air quality, HVAC control. I had a question here for you, Thomas. Can you comment on what percentage of the use cases involve occupants versus those that are around professional actors who operate, manage, and maintain the facility?
That's a very good question, and actually, probably James, this is probably better. You can have a bit more neutral comment on this. I have probably a little bit of a biased mindset. No, but okay. Of course, because we mainly tackle space utilization topics, not only but mainly. I would say if I really try to be as unbiased as possible, if we have first contacts with customers, I would say about 80% is really about space utilization. And then 20% is about energy, resources, and these kind of things.
Okay. I probably would say it's not quite as high as that. But yeah, no, I mean, and again,
that's what I mean with the bias.
Yeah, sure. But it's again, it's obviously definitely varies, right, between what type of building and which or what kind of organization they are and what really matters to them, right? I guess if obviously we're talking about something where the user is key, then in most buildings that will increase that number. And actually, that kind of reminded me. Anyone else who has questions, then please put them into us. Happy for us. We can take them anytime. So that's feel free to ask Thomas anything or myself as well if you've got anything more based on the market. So yeah, just type them in. Following on from that, I mean, we kind of summarized, right, on this slide, some advice for people who are embarking on a smart building journey. Thomas, do you want to talk through some of all these three steps that you produced?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's in the end, it's the typical approach how you should go on with any strategy, especially with a smart building journey. I mean, what we see quite a lot, and where customers need help from different vendors, they in the analysis phase. This is very important to start and create this joint vision of, okay, in the end, what is available? This is one input. Then, so in terms of like what is available on the landscape with the challenges. So what kind of challenges you actually have? what information is already available in the buildings, and really starting with these analysis phases and really diligently do that. This takes time. It's an important step because only then you can actually achieve what you plan to do. And there is a lot of work to do, also alignment within the organizations we see. So we need to, many times we have to discuss it, not just with corporate real estate, but also with HR and with the IT departments, which is, and this is important when you look for a vendor, it should always be approached from this. So starting with a joint vision, where should it go? And not just, okay, I'm going to deliver you a solution and I'm not really aware of your challenges. And then it's the planning phase. Usually, I mean, this is, as it is an emerging technology, it starts with a pilot project, with like a roadmap, the step-by-step implementation, really what kind of step-by-step, and then the execution. Usually it starts within a few buildings and then roll out across more. But this is kind of the usual way. I think, again, here it's important to really start, and I cannot say that enough times, you really start with the use case first, look at what you have already available within your landscape, which is most of the time already quite a lot, and then really create this joint vision together with the different departments in your organization. And then once you have this joint vision, embark on the journey and reiterate on it as you learn on the go. So there is, in any case, there is not, we haven't seen a successful smart building strategy implemented where like the Big Bang thing. So it needs to have this, we call it perpetual beta. So where we continuously learn and you try to refine it, instead of like going out and having a huge plan across 5 years, what you want to do. And in the end, it's more successful, start small and then getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions from me. First of all, with analysis, you're talking about evaluation of data that is already available. Do you see quite often then with clients that come to you that they perhaps already got systems that they could be getting data out of, that they're not taking full advantage of that?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing, especially in the space utilization area, I mean, there is, if you imagine, I mean, you have in all your buildings, you have an IT infrastructure. So you have an available Wi-Fi infrastructure. You have an available network, LAN network infrastructure. You have batch systems in place. You have different things that are sometimes also legacy systems, but you have, these systems have a lot of information, a lot of data in there. You just need to turn it into information and insights. And I think this is an important step to really look at what is available before starting to invest into any additional hardware and so on, because it's, in the end, there are, of course, good use cases for adding, changing the hardware and adding things, but it's, in the end, it's always the best cost-effective way to start with what you have, depending on the use cases again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, and then obviously the second part, planning, where we're talking about establishing a roadmap for implementation. I guess that's where we would hope that, you know, this white paper can be useful to people.
Absolutely. I think there is a lot of confusion around, okay, where should we start and how do we plan things? Because it's, in the end, I think it's quite natural that the smart building space is evolving, and this is like the usual technology adoption curve where there's a lot of things going on, but in the end, it comes all down to the planning and really executing it. And as I mentioned, I think there it's most importantly to just start, not think, of course, what your priorities are, but just start and move on and try things out, and not try to, create huge papers. And in the end, you find out after 2 years that this is already outdated. we see that quite some time where there are like, especially like RFPs going around with, I don't know, 70 plus use cases, which is a huge thing, and then multiple vendors, which is, of course, it's possible, but I think it's much better to learn quick and fail fast. So really adopt this more software approach, or more Google style approach to get smart buildings up and running, instead of doing a big bang thing where you in the end realize, oh, we did probably a little bit too much, we added too many things, we didn't clearly prioritize. So I think the planning, besides the analysis, the planning is of course very important.
A question here for you. To what extent would you say smart building certification schemes such as WELL are driving the adoption of smart building technologies?
It's a very good question. So I think that's a very, I mean, as from my point, I think it's a very good topic that helps to accelerate. It gives a certain structure, it gives the framework how to start a journey, similar to what we try to do. I think it's very good in terms of like coming up with what are the different outcomes, and then in the end also get the certificate for it. It helps to really stay focused on the right things. That's on the one thing. Yeah, I think that's coming up to that, like what defines a smart building and so on, is definitely helpful. On the other hand, I think it's also good because it defines kind of a standard, and it helps to, this is the other thing I was talking about, the interoperability between different platforms, so that everything between the different solutions, that they can be easily integrated, that they have an open API, that they consume bilaterally data from each other, and all these kind of things. This is really, I think, accelerating and helping to shift the focus from technology outcome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from my perspective, I think that we've seen people talking about WELL, and I think it is something that people are taking consideration of. And again, like being certified as WELL compliant, I think is it helps attract, or at least lets employees know that you're serious about their user experience. Just a question from me on 3, the execution. The sort of projects you get involved with, what does sort of a typical proof of concept look like? I mean, if you were giving advice to someone, how do they roll? How do they sort of dip their toe in the water if they're thinking about trying some smart building initiative?
Yeah, I think it's important there to start with like a proof of concept, and or with at least like a pilot, so that you can get everyone in the organization excited about the opportunity and the chances that offer smart building. So I think it's these pilots usually we do with customers. It's a lot about how can I say, shopping for awareness, basically, where you go around in the organization and you show how this was the initial challenge we had. We solved it like this. And really get buy-in from the different parties. I think this is important, again, not to start like think in a small, specific by yourself, create a smart building strategy, but rather go into the building, deploy depending on the challenges, the different solutions, and just try out as fast as possible, show it to as many people, make them excited, and really embark on that smart building journey and learn on the go. And I'm totally aware this is probably a bit of a difficult approach, especially for bigger organizations, which are typically not used to this kind of lean approach to doing things.
Right, sort of to iterating something, or trying something small and then phasing it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we have about 10 minutes left. So if anyone has anything to ask, now is your time. Please put some questions to myself or Thomas in the time we've got left. That'd be great. Anything you want to know about sort of this use case diagram that we've come up with, or sort of maybe Thomas's opinion on what he thinks, you know, some of the low-hanging fruit are, let's say, of this kind of thing. I mean, you know, in your opinion, Thomas, like if a building owner operator is looking for, you know, something to try to test out, and they don't have a huge budget, like what are the things that you think they should be thinking about testing and trying?
I mean, from my point of view, it is always looking at it on the business case side. Of course, one thing is a great thing you can start with, make people excited. If you just have, we see that experience quite often, where we, for instance, if you have all these find use cases, optimize use cases, there are a lot of things where, for like getting things moving, use cases that create visibility into buildings, be it find an available meeting room, all these kind of, if these challenges are really occurring, these things are good starting points which create in an organization, create visibility, and show the people in the buildings that corporate real estate teams really care about their needs. This is the more people-oriented starting point we see, and on the other hand, it's of course the other part is it's really starting with this space efficiency topic, where we see a lot of corporate real estate teams under pressure from their CFOs, reducing their real estate, and they now have to kind of find the right buildings to optimize. And really get things going and be more efficient. So we see quite a great demand from companies. They want to look, for instance, across their portfolio, where do they have the biggest leverage to reduce space. And this is another starting point, probably a more like cost-driven approach, but we see still a lot of great business cases coming out there, and especially corporate real estate teams getting more excited once they see how people use their space. So our impression is often the case, and this is for both topics, is often the case that corporate real estate teams are actually pretty far away from their end users. So they don't know how, on the one hand, how they behave, how the employees behave in the buildings, and through technology, making this visible, focusing on business cases like space efficiency and so on. These business cases are huge, and they can make corporate real estate teams visible within the entire organization.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of questions here coming for you. First one, how do we assess tenant privacy desires against opportunities to improve comfort and efficiency? How's a good way to strike that balance?
That's a very good one, and we discuss it very frequently with our customers. I mean, there is, in the end, and I see it again. I would like to take the example of it's really an extreme example, but in the consumer industry. So we all use Facebook, Google, and everything. So we're willing to pay with our privacy. It's a bit to be cautious about my words, but we're, in the end, to be like clear, we are willing to give in our data, but we can consume, on the other hand, we can consume data. We can consume things like, I don't know, Google Sheets, which are usually completely for free. We have Gmail and everything. In the end, it is clear for everyone that the product itself is for free, but we pay it with our data. And I think this is really an extreme example, and I think this definitely doesn't apply to office buildings. But in the end, there is exactly this trade-off between, okay, I, as a company or like as an employee, if at the moment I see the value, at the moment I see it actually helps me be more productive. It really enables me to get my job done more easily. There is also a stronger willingness to kind of share information. So, for instance, the example of finding a colleague. This is, on the one end, you can argue that it's it's a huge topic around privacy. So finding and locating someone in the building is of course a huge topic if you look at it from a privacy perspective. But the moment the employee sees the benefit of having an understanding where my colleagues are, then people also start to opt in. So you need, as a company, you always need to, of course, across this spectrum, you need to have different possibilities and be transparent about what is possible and what not. But this is definitely a lot of important discussions need to take place, and I think there is not one size fits all solution to it. Depending on the use case, it depends how you find the right balance between be completely anonymized versus be completely open where people are, for instance.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good point. And I guess in some way also it's about being transparent, letting employees know what you're doing, and also selling the benefits of that, and then coming up and then allowing them to opt in or out, and so that they are at least aware of what is going on and what the trade-off is, what the data is allowing them to do better to make them more efficient.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a huge change management part included in the smart building. So it's people in place. And so the people part needs to be addressed with the right change management, with communication, transparency, and all these kind of things, which are very important parts. And it's, in the beginning, it all looks very technical, but at the end of the day, everything, also the topic around the use cases, it's all about people and what challenges they see in the buildings. We tend to be too technical, to be honest, on these kind of things.
Yeah. Time for one last question for you, Thomas. Is it possible to define or characterize the early adopters of smart buildings? So is it commercial real estate facilities managers, smart building portfolio owners, public sector? Have you noticed any trend there? Could you characterize, like in your experience, who some of these early adopters are?
Yes, I think from my point of view, of course, the smart building portfolio owners, so someone who owns portfolios, like is building new smart buildings, they have an inherent push, they have an inherent incentive to position their buildings as some sort of smart. We see quite a lot of things going on there where like owners really take this jump ship and take this opportunity to move forward. And they, of course, help to push the market, accelerate, and like bring this smart building mission to reality. On the other hand, I think, yeah, on the one hand, this is like it's just they have an inherent incentive. On the other hand, the corporate real estate professionals, or like teams who are responsible for the corporate real estate in large organizations, they more and more they are exposed to all these challenges. Like as I mentioned, a top-down pressure to reduce costs, and then a bottom-up pressure from the employees complaining about modern work environment that don't work and so on. So they are in a kind of a sandwich position, and they don't necessarily have the compared to the owners have a marketing pressure, but they rather have like an inherent challenge to solve, and this moves people forward and accelerates this transition. Yeah. I think there are these early adopters, absolutely, and I think there are also these incentives to do that.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end. Thanks everybody for for listening, of course, but also for your questions. And we hope you found it useful. Of course, I'd encourage you to go and download that white paper. That's a lot more detail around what we've discussed here today, and you can get a copy of the diagram and how we've laid that out, the 7 attributes. You'll be able to see here Thomas and my contact details. So if there are any more questions for him or myself, then feel free to reach out. And I'd just say again, like, this has been recorded, and you'll be able to get I'll be able to listen to it again on SoundCloud and YouTube, and I'll be posting that on our website later this week. So just also remains me to say thanks to Thomas. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you very much for your time. It was great. Thank you, James, for leading through this webinar. So I hope, it was helpful for everyone. And we're quite curious about feedback. So leave us a note. In any case, if you have questions, reach out to me, reach out to James. I think it's the starting point of a shift, and I think there will be much more coming out from the Locatee side, but also, of course, hopefully from Memoori. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.